All right, this week we're going to talk about the cardiovascular, immune, lymphatic, and hematologic systems. It seems like a lot, but they're all interconnected and work together. So get ready for a lot of information. So, your cardiovascular system basically is your heart and your blood vessels. Your heart is the pump, your blood vessels is the transportation route for the blood to deliver blood and return blood from different parts of the body in order to exchange gases, nutrients, waste products. Um, Basically, you have a right and a left side of your heart, right and a left pump. The right side receives venous blood return, so blood from the rest of your body travels through the venous system and is delivered to the right side of your heart, where it is pumped to your lungs. In your lungs, it receives oxygen and pumps back to your left side of your heart. The left side of your heart then receives that oxygenated blood and pumps that blood to the body to be used as energy, oxygenated blood. It travels through arteries. That's from the left side. That's a highly pressurized system with filled with oxygenated blood, travels to the body, delivers oxygen to the tissues. The capillaries are very, very small blood vessels where that oxygen gas exchange happens. Oxygen is absorbed by the tissues, waste products go back into the blood. And then the veins or the venous system, that blood travels back to the heart to go through this process again. So, organs and anatomic structures of the cardiovascular system. First off, we have the heart. The heart is like the main guy in this system. It's a muscular cone shaped organ the size of your fist, located behind the sternum or the breastbone between the lungs. The pumping action of the heart circulates blood throughout the body. The heart consists of two smaller upper chambers, the right atrium and the left atrium, and two larger lower chambers, the right ventricle and the left ventricle. The right atrium receives blood from the body through the venous system, and it contracts or squeezes to pump the blood down into the right ventricle, which pumps the blood then to the lungs. The left atrium receives blood from the lungs, contracts down, pushes blood down to the left ventricle, which then contracts to pump the blood from the heart to the body through the arteries. The atrial septum separates the atria, and the ventricle septum separates the ventricle. The left ventricle is very muscular, very strong. It's got to pump blood very far, all the way down to the tips of your toes. Atrioventricular valves are the tricuspid and the mitral valve, which lie between the atriums and the ventricles. They keep blood flowing in one direction. The semilunar valves are the pulmonic and the aortic valves, located between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery, and between the left ventricle and the aorta. The pericardium is two-layer sac surrounding the heart, consisting of the external fibrous and the internal serous layer. The internal serous layer is then divided into two parts: the outer layer called the parietal pericardium, and the inner layer called the epicardium. Between these is the pericardial space, which contains fluid produced by the serous layer that facilitates movement of the heart, so provides protection, lubrication, movement of the heart. Epicardium, outer layer, outer lining covering the heart, also part of the pericardium. Myocardium is a middle thick layer of the heart. It's the muscular layer, the myocardium muscular. Endocardium is the inner lining of the heart. Blood vessels, tube-like structures that carry blood throughout the body. Arteries, blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. Arteries, all arteries, with the exception of the pulmonary artery carry oxygenated blood and nutrients to the body. Arterioles are the smallest of arteries. Aorta is the largest artery in the body, which originates from the left ventricle, briefly ascends in an arch of the aorta, then descends through the thorax and abdomen. Veins are blood vessels that carry blood back to the heart. All veins, with the exception of pulmonary veins, carry blood containing carbon dioxide and other waste products. Venules are the smallest of veins. Vena cava is the largest vein in the body. The inferior vena cava carries blood to the heart from the body parts below the diaphragm, so the lower half of your body. And the superior vena cava returns blood from the upper half of the body. Capillaries are microscopic blood vessels that connect arteries and veins. Materials pass between the blood and the tissue through the capillary walls. This is where like gas exchange happens, very, very small in the tissues. All right, let's talk about your blood, the composition of your blood. So, what is blood? It's fluid circulating through the heart, arteries, capillaries, veins. It's composed of plasma and formed elements. The formed elements are erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes. So, plasma is basically water, 90% water, and then 10% diluted solutes like protein, electrolytes, vitamins. Plasma consists of 55% of your blood. So it's mostly water with some minerals, electrolytes. The serum is clear water fluid portion of the blood that remains after a clot has formed. Cells, so the formed elements in the blood, production of new blood cells take place in the bone marrow, the spongy tissue inside some of the bones. That's where blood cells are produced. Erythrocytes are red blood cells, so cells that carry oxygen. Leukocytes are white blood cells. White blood cells combat infection, respond to inflammation. There are different types of white blood cells. We'll just refer to them as leukocytes. Thrombocytes are responsible for forming clots when you start to bleed or you have an injury. They're also called platelets. The lymphatic system consists of lymph transported through the lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, the spleen, the thymus gland. The functions of the lymphatic system are to return excessive tissue fluid to the blood, absorb fats and fat soluble vitamins from the small intestine, and provide defense against infections and other diseases. So the collected fluid from the tissue, known as lymph, travels away from the tissues and moves towards the heart and then is drained back into the venous system and returned to the cardiovascular system. So it kind of mirrors the cardiovascular system if you look at it on a picture. Lymphatic vessels transport lymph from the body tissues to the right and left subclavian veins, which then empties into the superior vena cava. Lymph nodes are small spherical bodies composed of lymphoid tissue. They may be singular or grouped together along with the path of lymph vessels. The nodes filter lymph to keep the substances such as bacteria and other foreign agents from entering the body. They also contain lymphocytes, part of the immune system. Your spleen is located on the left side of the abdominal cavity between the stomach and the diaphragm. In adulthood, the spleen is the largest lymphatic organ in the body. Blood flows through the spleen. Blood is cleansed of microorganisms in the spleen. The spleen stores blood and destroys worn out red blood cells. The thymus gland, one of the primary lymphatic organs, is located in the anterior to the ascending aorta and posterior to the sternum. Between the lungs, it plays an important role in development of the body's immune system, particularly in infancy to puberty. Around puberty, the thymus gland shrinks as most of its function is completed by that time. All right, so the immune system protects the body against pathogens. Pathogens are like foreign bodies, disease causing organisms, bacteria, fungus, viruses. The immune system relies on a lot of products from other body systems like the spleen, the liver, lymph nodes, bone marrow. You basically have three lines of defense. The first line of defense is mechanical barriers. So, like intact skin, mucous membranes in your GI tract, your respiratory tract, um, pretty much preventing anything from getting inside the body from the outside. The second line of defense is your innate immunity or basic inflammation, fever, phagocytosis. So there's a lot of stuff in your body that will happen when a pathogen is introduced. And it happens instantaneously right away within minutes or hours. Your body is fighting off this foreign pathogen or infection. And phagocytosis is the process of like consuming the pathogens by immune system products like neutrophils and macrophages, these white blood cell products that'll just start eating anything that is foreign. And then your third line of defense is specific immunity, acquired immunity, Your body actually learns how to specifically kill bacteria, viruses, fungus. Once it's been in the body for a few days, your immune system's really smart and it learns how to specifically target these foreign pathogens. The third line of defense. It's the best line of defense, the most intricate and like successful, but it takes the longest to kick in. Some combining forms of anatomic structures from this chapter. There are a lot more, so make sure you check out your book. But angio, referring to vessels, arterio, referring to arteries, cardio, heart, hemo, blood, lympho would be lymph or lymphatic tissue, phlebo or veno is veins. Prefixes from this chapter. Brady means slow, tacky, fast. Indo or intra is within. Pan means all. Peri, surrounding. Poly, many. Some suffixes. Apheresis is removal. R, pertaining to. Synthesis, surgical, puncture to aspirate and remove fluids. Ectomy, excision or surgical removal. Emia is in the blood. Megaly is enlargement. Penia is abnormal reduction. Sclerosis is hardening. Stasis is control, stop, or standing still. Stenosis is constricting or narrowing of. So, some disease and disorder terms for this chapter. Aortic stenosis is a narrowing of the aorta, that large vessel that comes right off the left ventricle. Arteriosclerosis is a hardening of the arteries. Atherosclerosis is a hardening of plaques within the arteries. So fatty plaques build up, deposit inside the arteries and get hard. Bradycardia is a slow heart rate. Tachycardia is a fast heart rate. Cardiomegaly is an enlarged heart. Ischemia is a deficiency in blood flow or oxygen delivery, can lead to infarct or death of tissues. Endocarditis is inflammation of the inner lining of the heart. Myocarditis is inflammation of the muscular portion of the heart, the muscles of the heart. Pericarditis is inflammation of the sac surrounding the heart. Phlebitis is inflammation of a vein. Cardiomyopathy is a disease of the heart muscle. Thrombophlebitis is inflammation of a vein associated with blood clots within that vein. And valvulitis is inflammation of the valves in the heart. Surgical terms for this chapter. Angioplasty, surgical repair of a blood vessel. Atherectomy, excision or surgical removal of a fatty plaque that's blocking an artery. Embolectomy is excision of a plug or a blood clot, usually using a balloon catheter within an artery or vein. Endarterectomy. Endarterectomy is excision within the artery of a plaque. Pericardiocentesis is a surgical puncture to aspirate fluid from the sac surrounding the heart. So typically to relieve a cardiac tamponade. And we have phlebectomy is the excision or removal of a vein. Valvuloplasty is the surgical repair of a valve.